Good afternoon and welcome to the Living Well radio program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also find us online at katb.org, and don't forget to find us on our Facebook page at Living Well Radio. How you doing over there, Betty?
I am doing well, Cammie. How about you?
Excellent. The days are getting longer. The sun is brighter.
Yes, I wore my sparkly shoes.
You did.
I did.
You're really ringing in spring, aren't you?
I'm tired of the boots and the coats and the hats and the gloves, so I decided I'm wearing my sparkly shoes. I parked close to the door so there'd be maybe no danger of falling.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, good for you. Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah,
I like it.
I hope.
We made it through another winter. We actually survived.
It's not over yet.
Come on now.
I know. In my mind, I'm planting my garden already. So, I don't know. Maybe soon. I hope.
Really? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. I like the sound of that. Listen, it is so great to be back in the studio. It feels like it's been a while, doesn't it, Betty?
It's been a long time.
Yeah. So we are just thrilled to have Rochelle Wissehr joining us from Cornerstone Church. And it sounds like she does a variety of things over there. So I have a line here to put your role or your title over there, and I ran out of room. So we're just going to say you do many, many things over there at Cornerstone. You're involved in a variety of different capacities, but the main one being that you assist your husband in being a youth pastor, and I'm sure that's a team effort for the most part there. So, Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today. We're just going to be talking about kind of all things youth is going to be our focus today, and just
Women,
finding out.
Girls.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so really no focus, just like.
That's why we like it, no focus. We're just going to take off and run.
I was trying to keep us on bullet points, but you just blew all my bullet points to.
That's what I do. That's why I'm here.
We're just going to see where this goes. Hey, Rochelle, welcome to the studio. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I'll stop talking for a minute. Take a breath. So why don't you just tell us a little bit of, just in general, tell us about Rochelle. Give us the basic 411. How long have you lived in Alaska? How many kiddos, if you've got kiddos? Tell us about you.
Okay. Well, my husband and I have been married for 20 years, and we were first up here kind of in the late 90s. He was in the Air Force, and then he felt called into the ministry. So we lived in Kansas for 10 years, and he went to school, and we worked at the college and stuff like that. And then we got a call to Cornerstone in 2008. So it's been about 9 years that we've been up here. And we have two amazing girls. We have Deanna, she's 12, and we have Gabrielle, who is 6.
Wow. So you've basically raised your kiddos through ministry.
Yes.
Wow, that's really cool. So what would you say you just received the call. Like, were you guys searching for an opportunity, or
no,
was this God's calling, just kind of whispering to you?
My husband wasn't.
Okay.
I was ready to get out of Kansas. But so the worship pastor at Cornerstone, Ash Braquet, him and Brian were really good friends when we lived up here before, because Ash was in the Air Force also, and they were in a band. And so Ash was working at Cornerstone, like it was his first year there. They were looking for a youth pastor, and he's like, hey, I know this guy. And so between the first phone call we got and then us actually driving onto the church's property was 1 month. And we drove from Kansas to Alaska.
Oh, my goodness.
Really?
Yep. The Lord just laid it all out, answered every prayer. Just, we knew that this was where we were supposed to be.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I love when God does that, when he just makes everything right, and you know that you're doing exactly what he wants you to do.
Yep.
But when you came to Alaska for Cornerstone, you did not start out in youth ministry, correct?
No, we started out in youth ministry. We actually were doing youth, children's, and young adult ministry. So we were doing all three when we first got here for the first 3 years we were here.
All at the same time?
All at the same time.
That should have kept you very busy.
Yes, it did. And we kept thinking, oh, our life's going to get less busy, but our ministries just grew and it got more busy. So
now you're just with the youth, correct?
Yes, junior high and high school.
What's the biggest difference between youth and young adult?
That's a good question. With young adults, they're a little bit more, I don't want to say set in their ways, but a little bit more set in their ways and a little bit more timid and not as trustful. Because like junior hires will just love you. I mean, they just love you no matter what. As they get into high school, then it's like, I don't know about you. I don't know if you're really who you say you are. And then by the time they're young adults and into their mid to late 20s, they don't trust a lot. This generation, I just feel like there's a lot of trust issues. And so, but then at the same time, they're ready to start dealing and walking through some of the junk that they've seen in their life, or, things that have happened to them. They just want to learn how to really walk with the Lord. And so they'll be seeking that relationship out. And they're just kind of owning it.
Yeah. And not to mention, I would imagine, just even thinking back to my own adult life, at that point, you're kind of reaping what you've sown as well already. You're dealing with some consequences from some choices. And so, I'm sure navigating that, in that age range can come with some different complexities as well.
Yes. A lot.
Yeah.
Have you, being a pastor's wife, you haven't always done that, correct?
Yeah.
Has it been challenging?
No, not really. When Brian was in the Air Force, he was in the Air Force full time, but then we also ran the youth ministry on Elmendorf. And so right out of the chute, being married, we were straight doing ministry. And then when we were at the college, we were doing college ministry together. So it just overlapped very easy. There was no, difference for me because I was just doing ministry with my husband. So.
Well, I admire you.
Oh, thank you.
You know how I like to ask the questions, right, Betty? I don't usually waste a lot of time dancing around the surface, but I don't want to end on a negative note either. But I do want to ask you, what the most frustrating thing about working in your ministry? What just is that, that one thing that just keeps coming up? You just wish you could bust through it.
Wow, that's a good question.
Okay.
Nothing like being put on the spot, is
yeah, I'm like... Probably just, everybody's always like, oh, we need help. In our ministry, we need people to volunteer and be a part and stuff like that. And so, that a little bit, I feel like we have a pretty good staff we have junior high on Tuesdays and senior high on Wednesdays. And between those two nights, we have about 80 to 100 kids and probably about 30 to 35 adults helping. Between those two nights. So
wow.
We, it seems like, we have enough help, but I think that's the biggest thing, and being able to have time to really pour into our leaders, our adult leaders, so that then they can pour into the students.
Wow. That is such a great point. That is such a great point. What a great frustration to point out of all of them, because that's so true. Your volunteer staff really does need to be poured into and kind of trained up to then be the most effective that they can be, in the ways that they volunteer. And so it sounds like you guys have a good number of people involved in your ministry, though, and that's pretty awesome.
I like how you said that, having the time to pour into your workers, because I agree with Cammie, that is so necessary. You don't want just to send them out and say, do it when they don't know how. And I think sometimes we tend to do that. We put people in positions and say, teach. Well, they don't know how to do it. And so with that thought in mind, I hear a lot of sermons, especially when they're talking to adults, when a pastor's talking to adults, come and work with the youth, come and work with the youth. But how? What would you say would be one of the things? Say, I don't work with the youth. That someone like me, what could I do to encourage, say, a young teenage girl? Give me some examples.
Okay. Well, the first thing that we do with anybody that's interested in serving in our ministry is we see what their gifts are, because we believe that you don't just plug a hole. That's how people get burnt out. That's how people get frustrated. And so if we find where your gifting is, then we can put you in a place where, number one, you will grow and those around you will grow. So if that means, we have people that are like, well, I want to help. Well, sometimes they're like, I want to lead a small group and I want to really like pour into these teens. And sometimes it's their gifting. And then other times there's people that come in and they're like, I don't want to do that. I want to help and I want to help your ministry. And we're like, okay, well, what are you good at? And sometimes they're like, you know what? We are great administratively, or, you know what, we would love to run the smoothie bar, or, you know, we love missions. So how can we, you know, be involved with the missions with the teenagers and stuff like that? And so that's kind of how, when people come to us and want to get involved, that's kind of the first question is, you know, what kind of passion has God put in you? And so that's usually a good place to start.
Do you notice a falling away from the youth when they graduate high school? They stop coming?
Yes, and we've really, probably in the past 2 years, we have really been zoning in on that. And what we're the beginning process of doing is that when they come into the senior high, and it's even before that, even junior high, getting them to serve in different aspects, whether it be like on Sunday morning in kids ministry, or, you know, just different things around the church. We try to get them involved, and then by the time they're in high school, then we're really, like, by the time they're a junior, we want them to be serving like on the worship team on Sunday morning, or in children's ministry, or just other areas in the church, where then they are surrounded by other adults that are pouring into them, and they already are having relationships with other adults that they're serving with. Because then it's not like, okay, you graduate, okay, now you can go be an adult. They already have relationships built with people, and they're already serving, and people are already speaking into their life. And so that's kind of what happened with women's ministry. Is we kind of called up a young lady who was a senior in high school, and we went ahead and put her on our women's ministry team. And so she's still serving. Like, she's very active. She serves in our student ministries too. She mentors junior high girls. So I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of times us as older adults, we're like, well, you're not really an adult until you graduate high school. You really can't serve or make a difference until after you're an adult, which we're trying to get into the DNA that no, like, you can make a difference even when you're a junior hire, or, you know, whatever like that. And even seeing, okay, what are your spiritual gifts? Like, some junior hires are great with small kids, and there's other junior hires I would not put with small children in a million years, you know? So it's kind of just even seeing and already pointing out the things that God has already put in them and their desires. And then kind of just helping them along in seeing, this is how God made you, and this is, you know, these are the things that you enjoy doing for a reason. And so let's kind of walk alongside you and get you involved in that.
Well, since you have put this younger lady on your women's ministry team, have you noticed younger women, more of them coming to participate in your activities?
Sometimes. It just depends on what it is and what we're doing. I know that one thing that we're going to be working on is actually, and we've done this once, and we want to do it a couple times during the year, is where our women's ministry team actually will go on a Wednesday night and actually share, like, to our high school girls, just either different life stuff, or just inviting them, or asking them, what are things you're interested in that you would like women's ministry to do? Because I think a lot of times people assume this is what teenagers enjoy doing or want, but they don't ask them. And so I think that's kind of where we're at right now, and just working that and kind of seeing how that kind of plays out.
That's a great idea. Definitely a gap, you know, that needs to be bridged amongst the generations. So definitely like that. And that's what we keep hearing over and over again, is that the younger girls, they just want to see how you do life too, essentially. They want to see what that looks like. How do you navigate, you know, difficult choices, or even the consequences from choices? They need to hear that. And sometimes that can be difficult for more mature Christians to be willing to kind of take that mask off, if you will, and be vulnerable and kind of get into the trenches with the younger generation so that they can see that vulnerability and then learn from that.
I think one thing you asked me earlier about, you know, if I wanted to get involved in a young girl's life. And I think the biggest thing is to just, you know, invite them out for coffee or, you know, invite them along into life with you. If you have, you know, if you're doing something like baking cookies or something at home or whatever, just trying to get them involved, like in your life so that they can see how you live out life. Like, you know, a mom with small kids, you know, maybe you have a teenager that comes over and watches them once in a while. Well, just invite her over just to, instead of just watching the kids, come over and be like, hey, I'm going to make cookies, or, you know, do you want to come over for dinner, you know, so that she can see that family unit, you know, because they say that it takes about, you know, 3 to 5 adults speaking into the life of a teenager. So, you know, even as a parent of a 12-year-old, you know, I'm already like, okay, who are other women that I want speaking into her life that I trust, that I know are going to be speaking godly things into her life and encouraging her, and to not be, you know, because as a mom, sometimes you're like, well, but I don't want her to like this other person more than me, you know, I'm her mom, but to try to like work through that. And, you know, that's just Satan.
Absolutely.
Because Satan doesn't want, you know, other people speaking into your daughter's life,
Right.
you know, in a godly way. And so to try to just pray through that and just know, okay, that is not from the Lord. And, you know, you want good for your kids. And so I think that that's one way that people can, you know, not be fearful, you know, to like go up, you know, just pray about it. And if you're like, okay, you know what, this young girl keeps coming to my mind and I'm just going to take her out for coffee or, you know, go get your nails done or I don't know.
Exactly. Yep. Just
Well,
spending time together.
You're so right. I have found they love to come to your house to see where you live and, you know, what it's like in your house, if it's anything like their own home. And they love to make cookies or cook a meal, you know. They don't too much like to clean up, but no.
Yeah. Well, they're teenagers.
I know. I'm teasing. No, but going into the home, they seem to really enjoy that. Not only teenagers, but young adults, young adult women like being invited to someone's home and being included in the activities.
Yep. That's huge too. We, when we were doing young adult ministry, they really just want people to take time for them. And sometimes that's really hard. That was really hard for us, like to find people that would just come and we're like, we want you to just come, you know, and we just want you to hang out and just get to know them. Number one, in a place where they don't feel like they have to be on guard maybe necessarily. But then that trust is built. And then it's like they, you know, hey, let's go out for coffee, or you know what, in our conversation, I heard you say this. Let's talk about that more, or just things like that. But I think people think of serving and they think I need to be doing something, when really sometimes it's just about building relationships and building trust, so that then you have the trust and the opportunity to speak into somebody's life. So yeah, I think that's a big.
Don't you think, too, sometimes it's, when you said the word being available, or just being there, you know, being around them, letting them know they can come and talk to you, or text, you know, share, I don't know how to do it, Snapchats with them. I think that's what it is. But I think that's a lot of it's just making yourself available to them maybe throughout the week or whatever.
Yep.
Are you finding it difficult? I mean, I guess I probably already know the answer to that. Let me ask the question a little bit differently. How do you guys deal with the fact that, you know, most of our kids at this age, they're being bombarded by false truth, essentially, you know, in the public school system, just in the media, just in general. How do you guys combat that with the limited time that you guys have available to do so? I mean, it's just so difficult to undo what they've had so many hours out of the week. And here you have, what, 1 or 2 hours?
Yeah. One thing that it is in our DNA, it is what we talk about, is our identity. and where our identity is. I mean, in anything that we're talking about or teaching, it always comes back to that. You know, it is really hard to, in 2 hours, to, you know, when they have all of this other stuff going on in their life. But really, it's having those, like for us, we have small group leaders, and those small group leaders reaching out to them during the week and taking the time out to be like, hey, you had this prayer request this week. How's that going? Because then it opens up for more conversation, and even, you know, hey, yeah, can you pray about me, you know, about this or that or whatever. And that's kind of the other, like in our growing ministry, one thing that we would really like to kind of start to put in place is to actually have like a parent, like a couple of different, like, I don't want to say parent nights or like parent conferences, but kind of to be able to encourage parents of teenagers and how to, you know, talk with your teen and, you know, interact with your teenager. Because I think sometimes parents have a hard time with that.
Sure.
They want to be like, oh, well, they're old enough. I don't really need to worry about them anymore. Or, you know, they're fine. But to be able to pursue your teenager. One thing that we've done that's kind of dual, I guess, purpose is once a quarter, we have a Wednesday or a Tuesday that we encourage parents, instead of bringing their student to youth group, is to take them out on a date to find like someone to watch the younger kids, but just for that, you know, either, you know, the mom and dad take out the son or daughter, or the mom, you know, take out the son, or however that works in your family, or whatever that looks like. I mean, we've had some amazing response of just like, and, you know, there's some questions that, you know, my husband will send out to them, you know, here's some different ideas. It doesn't have to cost any money. You know, you guys could go ice skating out at, you know, Westchester Lagoon, or, you know, whatever, but here's some different conversation pieces to have. Some different things, you know, open God's word with your teenager, you know, let them see you opening the Bible and read it together. And then on those nights we have like staff training for like our staff, so that it's not another night out of their busy schedule, you know, but they're already planning to be there. So like we serve them dinner, and then we do some different training stuff and some different breakout stuff, and teaching them how to lead a small group better, or, you know, seeing what the needs are that they're like, hey, I have a question about this, or.
Yeah.
That's such a great idea. Such a great idea. So you have small groups for your teenagers as well?
Yep. Usually a typical Tuesday or Wednesday night. Tuesday is junior high, so we play a little bit more games to get some of the energy out. But we have a smoothie bar that they can like get smoothies and candy and stuff like that. So that's usually open, and there's like hangout time up in the youth group room, and there's like a pool table, ping pong table, a whole bunch of just different stuff for them to do up there. And they get to hang out probably for the first like, probably like 15, 20 minutes. And then usually there's some kind of like crowd breaker or something to kind of get them back into the main room. And then there's worship. And for junior high, we just do like iPod. You know, we pick out some songs and stuff like that. We have a senior high worship team, so they actually have a worship team that does worship for them. And then my husband he'll preach for about, you know, 20 or 30 minutes. And then he, during the week, sends out questions on what the topic is to the small group leaders. And so then the kids will go into small groups just based on, you know, boys with boy leaders, girls with girl leaders. And they stay together all year long. And even we try to keep them together through the years also. And so then that's where they kind of get into the nitty gritty of asking questions and, you know, what do you think about this? And that's where the identity piece is talked about, and questions come up, or prayer requests, and that's really also like their community. We try to encourage the small group leaders to get together with their kids and, you know, plan things with their kids, so that we're not doing big events all the time. Because smaller, you know,
it's always more effective.
Yes.
Sure.
And so we're not having big events all the time. Like right now for junior high, we're in a big event that's called the Race, and it's fun and games, and they get points for memorizing Bible verses, and bringing friends, they get the most points. So it's an outreach event, and it's for 4 weeks. And then on that 5th week, we have like a big awards ceremony, and they get to dress up and stuff like that.
Really?
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
neat.
like red carpet event
Aw.
and stuff like that, and we serve them dinner. And but other than that, we don't do a whole lot of like, okay, the whole youth group gets together for this or that. So
Wow, very cool. So I don't think we've asked you yet to share with us, how would somebody get in touch with your ministry?
you can go to akcornerstone.org and just go underneath ministries and students, and you can find out what time we meet and what's going on and kind of the next sermon series that are going on and stuff like that.
Okay,
That is cool.
excellent.
I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about your women's ministry.
Okay.
Because in the last year and a half, it has grown quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken. And tell us some things about this going on through women's ministry.
Well, it's really exciting just to, Camille does an amazing job of leading us and giving us a vision and a purpose and, why we're there, which I feel like is really important for any ministry, to be able to find people that will follow. But it's just been really encouraging just to see relationships being built and women. We don't do fluff. That's what I like too, is it's like, let's just get to the nitty gritty of things. We're, like our retreat coming up is all about surrender, and, everything points back to Jesus, and how can I walk through whatever we're talking about in my own life? How can I take this and apply it? And so that's been really good. We have something called Second Saturdays that we do that are just, sometimes they're very like hands-on, learning. Like the next one is the second Saturday in April, and it's a cooking one. And so that one will be really, really good. Just to learn some different stuff about cooking for those of us that have cooked for a long time, and those of us that just want to learn new things or have never cooked before. And so those are just really good times to get together and learn, but then also be able to just see how God works just in different areas everywhere. So yeah, I mean, it's been really, really good just to be able to just see women in our church get connected and get plugged in and be able to start working through some stuff and asking questions. So
I think Cammie and I both have been to at least one Second Saturday, and I think you attended one of their events that they had
Yes.
for their women, and we had a great time.
Absolutely.
Loved it. Loved every
Yeah.
minute of it. Even arriving at 7 a.m. Was that right? That's when it starts, right?
Yes.
7.
yeah, I
Something
think
like
it's,
that.
I think it's like 7:30.
Is it 7 like that? It was early.
Yeah.
7:30
Yeah.
to 9, I think is what it was.
Yep.
We had a really good time. You had a good turnout, I thought, for so
Yeah.
early in the morning.
Yes,
And,
those are a great time. In fact, I was just realizing I missed Marches then, right? Or did you guys
We
not
don't
have one?
we don't have one in March because we have the retreat.
Okay.
So yeah. So yes, we have one in April, which is the cooking. It's called Remain Calm, and then the one in May, the second Saturday in May, is on gardening. And so yeah,
I might need to come.
There
yeah.
you go. Yeah, you were just talking about gardening.
Yeah.
And
Alrighty.
that'll be about the time that you want to really start thinking about your plants and your seeds and getting everything going.
Yep. Need
That'll
that
be
snow to
fun.
go away.
First, that's right.
Oh, I'm sure it's going.
Yes.
I'm positive it's going.
Is there anything else you would like to share, Rochelle, that we didn't ask you or that God just laid on your heart regarding your ministry? Or
I think you pretty much covered
Covered it?
all the questions and
good.
all the
Okay.
things that I wanted to share.
You mentioned something, and I think we just have a few minutes left, about looking around if you have a teenage daughter for other women to speak into your daughter's life. And something that I did, women that are listening might be thinking, well, what can I do? What can I do? But when my youngest daughter turned 16, her dad had passed away just a few months before. And so she was turning 16, and I was trying to think, what could I do? That's kind of a special number, 16. There's those special birthdays. And So I looked around at the women that I knew loved her and had been part of her life, all of her life. And instead of her inviting friends, we invited these more mature women to come. And they were asked to not bring a gift, but they were to bring her a card. And on the card, they were to write out a prayer for her. So I prepared a meal. She decorated, and and she kind of thought it was kind of odd, but she was being good, and she was enjoying it. And so after we had the cake and all that, I had 2 chairs in the middle of the living room, and so the one mature lady would sit in one chair, and then my daughter would go sit beside her, and the mature woman prayed that prayer over her, and so she kept all of those, and it was a very, very, it was a very emotional time, but it was a very touching time, and it was women that I knew that loved her, and if something happened to me, I was very confident that they would be able to help her. They would be able to speak truth into her life, and that she would listen to them, I hope. But it was, that was just an idea. I honestly had forgotten about it until you mentioned looking for women to speak into the lives of your children.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, just to be looking for women like that, either spend time with your kids, either, if you have boys, that there's some godly men, around, or, if you have a daughter, godly women. And yeah, that's huge. I think that's going to make a big difference in, the lives of our teenagers, just because, they are bombarded all the time with stuff. And so if there's godly people speaking into their life and spending time with them and investing in them, it's funny because discipleship a lot of times is a scary word for people. And really, it's just natural. I mean, it's very fluid. It's very natural. And so I think that's...
It's funny that you would say that. Someone asked me not too long ago, when I was growing up, who discipled me? And I said, well, that wasn't really a word that was used when I was growing up. I would guess you would say discipleship, if you want to call it, took place when I was helping my mom do dishes, or my mom was teaching me how to prepare a meal, or we were cleaning house together, or she was showing me how to iron, which I hated every second of it. But
that's an important skill.
Yes,
is it?
It is.
I try to forget everything I ever knew about ironing. But I would guess that would be the way I was discipled, so to speak. Or when I would go to my grandparents' house and we would make jam or jelly together, because there was always conversations, and the conversations always, of course, centered around life, and they would eventually come back around God. So, it's just natural.
Yep.
It's just a conversation, doing life with somebody.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know we're out of time, but I just want to throw this out there just because I'm definitely in the trenches of raising a young adult of 19 and then have a teenager and then one on the other end a little bit younger. But what is difficult is my generation can't really go to the older generation and ask for advice on several things just because they haven't really navigated the internet and, the FaceTime and just so many of the components that we're dealing with as parents these days. But if you've got that sphere of influence speaking into your child's life, it doesn't really matter that they can't relate or didn't navigate those things themselves. They are speaking truth and helping build that foundation. So it makes it vital, really.
Well, and it goes both ways, because I can ask any teenager how to do something on my phone, and they can show me, and so then they're teaching me, but it also opens up the doors for conversations for other things. And so I love doing that, and I love contacting teenagers and saying, can you help me? And they always say, oh, yeah, I know how to do that.
I mean, because too willing to, aren't they?
Yeah, they know, they'll tell you that they know how to do certain things, and, I think sometimes tapping into that is good, is good.
Absolutely, to respect what they do know instead of putting it down. And I think they're bombarded now in the church with information about how bad all of these things are. And not that that's not true, but there's a way to embrace some of the good aspects of their knowledge in that area as well.
Yeah, so definitely.
That's really neat. Well, thank you so much, Rochelle, for coming on today. We appreciate you sharing your heart. It's fun to see your passion. You can just see it in your face and your smile the whole time, that you love what you do. And you guys have given your life in full time to it. So thank you again for coming on Living Well today. And that's another Living Well radio program. And again, you can find us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also find us online at katb.org or our Facebook page at Living Well Radio.